This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. You know, and I still remember a couple of years ago when the new school of Legions hit with AMD processors inside and QHD 16 by 10 aspect ratio displays, and kind of took the world by storm, and the price wasn't too bad. Well, here we are in 2022, about to be 2023 now, in fact it is, and they're still doing their thing and people are still loving it, as you should. This is the Lenovo Legion Slim 7. So there's a Slim 7i, which is Intel. The Slim 7 is all AMD, or AMD Advantage inside. So we have an AMD 6900HX CPU inside, and the RX 6800S, which is for slim gaming laptops inside, of this nice aluminum kind of chill and obviously slim chassis. It's not the skinniest gaming laptop on the planet. That would be the Alienware X14 right now, but it's still relatively the slimified version of your Legion. In fact, you can see it compared to the Legion 5 Pro. So it might be low on bling, and that's good, you know, chill, take it to the office, all that sort of thing, but it's got the power inside. We're going to look at it now. And just because your gaming laptop has no bling, your room still can. That leads to our video sponsor, TP-Link's Tapo Smart LED Light Strips. They create guiding illumination in your otherwise dark gaming cave, and they're also great for other things, obviously. Ambiance around your living room, TV when you're watching movies, TV backlighting, all of that sort of thing. Unlike most LED strips, this is RGB WIC. What does that mean? That means white LED light, so it's 20% brighter. A lot of light strips are just kind of really too dim to do much in your room, you know what I mean? You can customize 50 color zones, and there are a bunch of animating effects. You can use the app for that, and there's 16 million color choices. You can also group Tapo devices together to get the features going in sync. And speaking of sync, there's also sound sync. They're IPX4 rated for safe kitchen use as well. They're compatible with Google Assistant or Google Home, whatever you want to call it, Apple's HomeKit, and Alexa as well. Be sure to check out the discount code in the description to save. And now back to our video. For those of you who are AMD curious, but you're not quite sure about what stuff is, the processor here is the top of the line until the new generation. As always, there's always going to be a new generation comes out for Ryzen processors. For laptops, gaming laptop, mobile workstation category, this is as fast as it gets. It's not as fast as Intel 12th generation Core i7 and Core i9 processors, particularly in the multi-core section, but it puts up a good effort, and typically it makes for a bit less energy consumption compared to Intel, which is important because you are talking about a laptop here, right? So you use on battery power at times. The GPU on this, the RX 6800S, is equivalent to about an NVIDIA RTX 3070 to maybe a 3080 Ti Max Q edition. So very high end, in other words. Not the most powerful thing you could possibly get, but quite high end. And Lenovo makes thicker Legions, not a lot thicker to be honest, but that have more powerful AMD GPUs if you're interested. Of course, NVIDIA graphics are available as well with the Intel processor models. In terms of thermals, a concern with gaming laptops, at this point, I mean, Lenovo's got it down. The cooling system is up to the task, and while AMD processors may use less power, they still can generate some heat. So you will see it certainly hitting the 90s centigrade in benchmarks for those core temperatures, but it'll even out and go down into the 80s, which is actually acceptable for a relatively speaking, fairly slim gaming laptop. While it may be slim, speaking of that though, it's not ultra light, but it's fairly light for a 16-inch gaming laptop at 4.8 pounds, which is 2.175 kilograms. So it's not too bad a carry, especially if you're looking for something that's, say, it's great for going to college, right? You need something to do your schoolwork, and maybe even if you're doing some programming and Blender stuff, and you want to be able to game all on the same machine. That's a good choice for this sort of laptop. The display is as good as ever from Lenovo. It's, again, WQHD+, so it's 2560 by 1600 with a 16 by 10 aspect ratio. This is an IPS display. It's not super wide gamut. You get full sRGB coverage, but you don't get nearly full P3 coverage as we see in some other premium laptops. And this model, which this configuration is available at Best Buy in the United States, is $1,950. So we're not talking cheap Cheetos here. I would have liked to have seen a little wider in the color gamut. Experientially, though, it looks very bright, nice contrast, and very colorful. So it's not like you're going to look at it and be disappointed or anything like that, but there's that. for content creators, particularly who are looking for full P3 coverage. Just something to keep in mind, unless you're going to plug it into an external monitor. Speaking of which, the port selection is quite good. This being AMD, you get USB-C. You won't get Thunderbolt because AMD, not Intel. And it's 3.2 Gen 2, so it can do DisplayPort 1.4 and power delivery as well. And the ports in the back, as ever, I just love it, that they label them along the top of the back so you can just look over and see. In terms of RAM inside, this is one of those weird situations. You've got 8 gigs soldered to the motherboard's DDR5 RAM, and you have 1 RAM slot. So you go with 16, for example, you get an 8 gig SO-DIMM module. If you go for anything above that, you might lose your dual channel performance advantage there if you have mismatched RAM capacities. It's a concession to the slimness of the machine and how much they could fit on the motherboard while compressing everything so much. Yeah. There's one M.2 SSD slot on board, PCIe 4. Bigger Legions have 2 slots, typically speaking, so you're only going to get 1 here. The Wi-Fi card is socketed and upgradable, and it's Wi-Fi 6E with Bluetooth 5.1 on board. So the usual appointments that you would expect to see. Something to not take for granted in a gaming laptop where biometrics usually aren't that common, you do have a fingerprint scanner in the power button, which is an excellent place to put it. If you want to switch between performance modes with the Legion, you hit the FN and the Q button and cycle through 3 different performance settings. You've got the Echo/quiet whispery mode one, the Auto/balance, and then the performance. We ran all of our benchmarks and all of our game tests in performance mode. And performance, typically, it will vary game to game. Some are more biased towards Intel or AMD for CPU or GPU, but typically speaking, this does perform in the realm of an NVIDIA RTX 3070 processor. It's pretty good. If you're playing a game like Far Cry 6, which is very much an Intel CPU bias kind of game, you won't see the same performance, for example. But if you're playing Red Dead Redemption 2 or Control, then you're going to see really good performance there. That's just about up there with the Intel counterparts, certainly, and in NVIDIA. All, well, again, while using less power while it's unplugged, which you're not going to be doing when you're gaming. Plug it in for the best performance. But we do use laptops for a reason, so we can carry them around and do productivity. When you're doing that kind of thing, surface temperatures are warm. You'll hear the fans typically at a very low hum, nothing to be annoying or anything like that. And when you are gaming, even in performance mode, the noise relative to a gaming laptop is not that loud. And the fans are nicely tuned, so it's not annoying by any means. The keyboard on this is very tactile. I mean, Lenovo is a company that makes ThinkPads and they're legendary keyboards, right? It feels good. Ours has white backlighting, FN plus spacebar to turn that on and off. There is an option for per key RGB if you order it through Lenovo's website. Likewise, our battery is 71.1 watt-hour in capacity, and Lenovo says that there is a 99.98 watt-hour option, which is not the model that we have. When I looked on their website in the United States, I didn't see that battery option available, but I will take their word for it. Obviously, battery life would vary wildly between those two, so I'll only speak to the 71 watt-hour battery. It's decent. Again, AMD is pretty power frugal. If you're just doing light productivity work, the usual streaming some video, doing a little Zoom chatting, which can be a little more of a battery hog, that sort of thing. 1080p webcam, by the way, not too bad. Battery life is typically about 7 hours if you're running this in hybrid mode, which means switchable graphics. You can set it to DGPU mode only using the Lenovo Legion software to do so. It's software-based MUX. Basically, it requires a restart if you do switch between hybrid mode and DGPU only mode. Take off the bottom cover. It's very easy. Just remove the little Phillips head screws. This one over here actually lifts up a little bit to make it easier to pry off. Nothing too obnoxious. Metal. Yay that. And here are the internals. So to get to the RAM, I have to pull off this heat tape right here that attaches to the heatsink area to remove this one foil cover over the single RAM slot that is right here. So just one RAM slot on this model. So you can upgrade it, but you potentially would lose dual channel status if you mismatch the RAM that's on the motherboard, which is 8 gigs with something like a 16 or 32 gig DIMM if you add it in. Not the end of the world, but just something to keep in mind. And beside it, we have the M.2 SSD slot right over here with a nice copper heatsink on top of it, or heat tape. And this is our socketed Wi-Fi card. Obviously, that is removable, upgradable, and what have you. And the usual design with large fans. I like this beefy heatsink plate, by the way. and exhausting out the sides and out the rear, sucking from the bottom and from the top, and the usual big battery flanked by stereo speakers down-firing over here. The audio on this is pretty good, actually, louder and fuller than average, especially given the anemic quality of so many gaming laptop speakers. These are pretty darn nice. So there are an awful lot of competitors to choose from right now. Obviously, there is that Alienware look for a very distinctive, futuristic, if not a little too sci-fi for some people look. So for those of you who want something a little more conformed looking to take to school or to work, this would certainly be it. And it's a lot less expensive than the Razer Blade, which is kind of the paragon of the good-looking laptop you can take anywhere. And typically, Legions run at higher wattage, which means a bit more performance available to them than some Razer Blades, because Razer Blades are so thin and all that sort of thing. And talking about MSI, they make good performing laptops, especially the high end, but not with this kind of looks and this kind of build quality. I've said the Legion just is a solid, nice chunk of metal. You know, it's very satisfying in that respect. And when you're looking at something like Asus, again, they typically have a little bit more out there designs, but they do also give you the AMD and Intel options that are available here in a variety of sizes and all that sort of thing too. But I would say, again, for those of you who are looking for that classy, chill build, this one still fits a lot of bills. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos, and thumbs up if you like this vid.